When you hear about silver, you probably think of coins. Maybe you think of jewelry. If you follow the news, you might think of solar panels or electric cars. We are told that the future of silver is green. We are told it is all about the energy transition. But there is another story. It is a story that is not on the front page of the financial papers. It is a story that government officials do not like to discuss in press briefings. It is the story of silver as a weapon of war. While the world argues about the price of bullion or the demand for solar farms, the military-industrial complex is quietly consuming massive amounts of this white metal. They are not making coins. They are making missiles. They are making fighter jets. They are building weapons that sound like science fiction but are very real. This is the military demand that no one is allowed to talk about. It is the demand that does not care about the price. It is the demand that is essential for national survival, and it is growing every single day. To understand why, we have to look beyond the battery. We have to look inside the machines that define modern warfare. Silver is not just money. In the world of physics, silver is a miracle. It is the single most conductive metal on the periodic table. It conducts electricity better than copper. It conducts heat better than gold. It is the most reflective metal in existence. In a normal house, these properties are nice to have. In a weapon system, they are the difference between life and death. When a computer crashes at your desk, it is an annoyance. When a guidance system crashes in a missile moving at supersonic speeds, it is a failure. Military electronics cannot fail. They must work instantly. They must work perfectly. They must work in freezing cold and burning heat. This is why the military loves silver. It is the only metal that can handle the stress of combat. It moves data faster than anything else. It stops connections from overheating. It allows engineers to shrink powerful radars into small cones on the nose of a jet. But the usage goes far beyond just electronics. The specific applications are staggering. Let's talk about the Tomahawk cruise missile. This is the backbone of American strike capability. It is a long-range, low-altitude weapon that can be launched from a ship or a submarine. It finds its target with terrifying precision. There are reports and expert analyses that suggest a single Tomahawk missile can contain up to 500 ounces of silver. Read that again. 500 ounces. That is nearly 15 kilograms of silver in one single-use weapon. And why so much? It seems impossible. But when you break down the missile, it makes sense. First, you have the batteries. We're not talking about the lithium batteries in your phone. Those catch fire. Those are unstable. In a missile sitting in a launch tube for 10 years, you need reliability. You use silver-zinc batteries. These batteries offer incredible power density. They can sit dormant for years and then release a massive surge of energy in milliseconds to fire up the rocket motors and guidance systems. They are safe. They are powerful. But they require huge amounts of silver. Then you have the guidance cables. The data has to move from the sensors to the fins instantly. Copper is too slow and too heavy for the efficiency needed here. Silver-plated cables are the standard. Then you have the solder. The connections on the circuit boards must not break under the intense vibration of a rocket launch. Silver solder is stronger and more conductive than standard lead or tin solder. When you launch a Tomahawk, you are essentially launching a massive bar of silver into the air, never to be recovered. Every time a button is pressed in a conflict zone, silver is vaporized. It leaves the supply chain forever. It is not just missiles, it is the planes that carry them. Modern fighter jets, like the F-35 or the older F-22, are marvels of engineering. It is a solid lubricant. When silver is plated onto steel bearings, it creates a slippery surface. Even at high heat, the silver allows the bearing to spin freely. It does not burn off. It does not evaporate. Every major military aircraft engine relies on silver-plated bearings. This technology dates back to World War II, but it has become more critical as engines get hotter and faster. The more advanced the jet, the more silver it needs in the engine to keep from melting itself down. This is a use of silver that cannot be recycled easily. When the part wears out, the silver is gone or extremely difficult to reclaim. It is consumed by the friction of flight. Modern warfare is not just about bullets. It is about electrons. It is about radar. It is about stealth. If you fly a plane into enemy territory, you're being bombarded with electromagnetic waves. Enemy radar is trying to find you. Enemy jammers are trying to scramble your radio. Enemy pulses are trying to fry your computer. You need a shield. Silver is the best reflector of electromagnetic energy. If you coat a surface with a thin layer of silver, it blocks radio waves. It blocks interference. Military cables are wrapped in silver shielding. This stops the enemy from hacking the signal inside the wire. It also stops the signal in the wire from leaking out and revealing the location of the unit. This is called EMI shielding, electromagnetic interference shielding. As we move toward drone swarms and automated warfare, this becomes the most important factor on the battlefield. A drone that loses connection is useless. A drone with silver-shielded internals keeps flying. This application is massive. It uses miles and miles of silver-coated wire. It uses silver sprays and conductive paints. It is invisible to the naked eye, but it is the skin of the modern military machine. Now we move to the future. This is the part that is truly driving the new demand. For decades, generals have dreamed of lasers. They want weapons that shoot light. They want directed energy weapons. These weapons are no longer dreams. They are being deployed on ships and trucks right now. They use massive beams of focused energy to shoot down drones and incoming missiles. They are silent. They are invisible. And they are cheap to fire. But they have a problem. Heat. Creating a laser beam powerful enough to burn through steel generates a massive amount of waste heat. It also requires a sudden, massive flow of electricity. If you try to push that much power through a copper wire, the wire melts. The resistance is too high. You lose too much energy. Silver is the answer. Because silver has the lowest resistance of any metal, it is the only material efficient enough to power these weapons without destroying the power source. The cables used in directed energy weapons are heavy, thick, and plated with pure silver. The cooling systems often use silver interfaces to dump heat away from the diode. As the military moves from firing bullets to firing lasers, the demand for silver will not just double, it will explode. A laser system is essentially a giant machine built to channel electricity, and silver is the highway for that electricity. We must also look at the ultimate weapon, nuclear technology. In a nuclear reactor, you need to control the reaction. You need control rods that absorb neutrons. If the reaction gets too hot, you drop the rods in and the reactor slows down. One of the most common alloys for these rods is a mix of silver, indium, and cadmium. The silver content is very high, often around 80%. This is true for civilian reactors, but it is critical for military reactors, the part that no one talks about. If silver is so vital for missiles, jets, lasers, and nuclear subs, you would think the government would have a huge pile of it guarded by soldiers. You would think there would be a strategic silver reserve. There used to be. Decades ago, the United States held billions of ounces of silver in a strategic stockpile. It was there for this exact reason, to ensure that in a war, we could make weapons. But over the last 30 years, the government sold it. All of it. They sold it to mint coins. They sold it to keep prices low. They assumed they could always just buy more from the market. Today, the U.S. National Defense stockpile contains zero silver. None. If a major conflict broke out tomorrow, a conflict that required thousands of new missiles and hundreds of new jets, the military would have to go to the open market. They would have to bid against Apple. They would have to bid against Tesla. They would have to bid against you. This is a vulnerability that is rarely discussed. We are dependent on just-in-time delivery for a metal that is the nervous system of our defense. Where does silver come from? A huge amount comes from Mexico, Peru, and China. China is a major producer. China is also a major consumer. China knows exactly how important silver is for military tech. They are not selling their stockpiles. They are building them. Russia is another player. In a world where supply chains are breaking down, the West is in a precarious position. We rely on imports for a metal that we cannot fight without. If a supply chain blockade happened, we could not build the Tomahawks. We could not build the F-35 engines. The assembly lines would stop. This is why the military demand is a quiet panic. The defense contractors know they need to secure supply. They are locking in contracts. They are draining the physical vaults quietly. They do not want to spike the price, but they must have the metal. We need to understand the difference between use and consumption. When you buy a silver spoon, the silver is still there. It can be melted down in 100 years. When the military uses silver, it is often consumed. A torpedo fired into the ocean takes its silver components to the bottom of the sea. A missile that explodes scatters its silver into dust over a battlefield. A satellite sent into orbit takes its silver contacts to space, never to return. This is destructive demand. It is demand that permanently removes the metal from the human supply. As wars become more high-tech, this destructive demand accelerates. We are shooting silver into the sky and into the sea. We are vaporizing it. The estimates of available silver above ground are shrinking. We are not mining it fast enough to replace what we are destroying. And why is this not on CNBC? Why is this not in the Wall Street Journal? Because silver is viewed as a poor man's gold. It is viewed as a volatile commodity for day traders. The strategic narrative is ignored because it is uncomfortable. Admitting that we have no stockpile is a political failure. Admitting that our weapons depend on a metal we import is a strategic weakness. So the silence continues, but the demand does not stop. Look at the defense budgets. They are rising globally. Germany is rearming. Japan is rearming. The United States is spending nearly $1 trillion a year. A significant percentage of that money is flowing into hardware that requires silver. Every new drone program is a silver program. Every new radar upgrade is a silver upgrade. Every new hypersonic missile is a silver missile. The link between the printing of money, defense spending, and the consumption of real money, silver, is direct. The narrative of batteries is a distraction. It is true, but it is small compared to the existential need for military dominance. Silver is the most strategic metal on Earth. It is the metal that allows a nation to see in the dark, to fly faster than sound, and to strike with precision. Without silver, the modern army goes blind. It goes silent. It stops moving. The new military demand is not a proposal. It is a reality happening in factories right now. The stockpile is empty. The mines are struggling to keep up, and the weapons are getting hungrier. The next time you see the price of silver move, do not just think about inflation. Do not just think about the Federal Reserve. Think about the Tomahawk missile. Think about the fighter jet engine. Think about the silent, invisible consumption of the one metal that makes modern war possible. This is the demand no one talks about. But it is the demand that matters most.